Hello, fellow psychology and gamer nerds. My name is Brian Hamilton, and in the spirit of Halloween season, today we are going to be talking about Count Strahd. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Strahd is a character created by Tracy Hickman for the Dungeons & Dragons game in 1978. At the time, the game was pretty simple. A player called the Dungeon Master would create a map and populate it with various monsters. The other players would create characters known as the Adventurers who would come in and kill the monsters and collect whatever treasure they could find. According to Hickman, he was playing a game with friends when they encountered a vampire. Not a vampire with a capital V, Hickman states, but so many hit dice with such and such an armor class lowercase vampire. Just another monster in the dungeon. Hickman felt that this character was completely out of place in a dungeon that was filled with kobolds, orcs, and gelatinous cubes. As Hickman states, this was a creature who deserved his own setting and to be so much more than a wandering monster. Hickman went home that night and told his wife Laura about his experience, and the two worked together delving into the mythology and folklore of the vampire to create a Halloween adventure for their friends featuring none other than Strahd. Strahd first appeared in print in 1983 as the primary villain of the Dungeons & Dragons adventure Ravenloft. According to the adventure, Strahd was once a noble warrior who thundered across the land like the wrath of a just god. Worn down by years of fighting, Strahd led his army to the Valley of Barovia, where the villagers named him their lord. Later, Strahd called for his family, who had been unseated from their thrones in a land now forgotten. Living among the villagers in the lands of Barovia was a young woman named Tatiana. In Strahd's journal he writes, "I loved her with all my heart. I loved her for her youth. I loved her for her joy. Old One was my name to her, elder and brother. Also, with the words she called me brother, but when I looked into her eyes, they reflected another name, death. It was the death of the aged she saw in me. She loved her youth and enjoyed it, but I had squandered mine." Tatiana had spurned Strahd for his younger brother Sergei, a handsome and youthful man to whom she was eventually betrothed. Enraged, Strahd made a pact with death, a pact of blood. And on the day that Sergei and Tatiana were to be wed, Strahd murdered his brother. When he confessed his crimes to Tatiana and proclaimed his love for her, she leapt from the cliffs of Castle Ravenloft to her death. The castle guards pierced Strahd with arrows, but he did not die. Instead, he became an undead monstrosity, a vampire. The Valley of Barovia then filled with mists, the villagers and Strahd trapped in a world without sunlight. Strahd retreated into the catacombs of Castle Ravenloft, where he now rests among the dead, haunted by the memory of Tatiana. One of the ways that therapists can use Strahd is as an analogy to discuss the Protector-Persecutor complex. This complex was first described by Donald Kalshed in his book Trauma and the Soul, a psycho-spiritual approach to human development and its interruption. For individuals who have an insecure attachment to others, they can sometimes develop an inner voice that works as a specialized defense mechanism, providing protection in the form of an escape through fantasy or addiction. Should individuals try to escape from this fantasy by trying to establish healthy relationships with others or engaging in mentally healthy activities, the voice persecutes them, driving them back into the fantasy it had created for them, and filtering information to them in such a way that it discourages them from trusting and linking with others. We see this in Strahd, who enshrouds the lands of Barovia in thick mists, insulating it and protecting the land's inhabitants from the outside world. These mists are poisonous, and any creature who enters them immediately starts choking, effectively preventing them from escaping. Creatures cannot communicate with the outside by mundane or magical means unless that communication is filtered through the Vistani merchants who are bound to Strahd's service and can travel through the mists to other lands. For those with a Protector-Persecutor complex, the Protector aspect encourages them to fantasize endlessly about individuals who will never return their love, to engage in fruitless activities with the false promise of happiness or success, but which never comes to fruition. Most importantly, the Protector convinces them to give up on anything that promises to deliver them from the gilded cage that it has created for them. In the Ravenloft adventures, we see these behaviors in characters like Gertruda, who retreats into storybooks and concocts in her mind a false romance with Strahd that goes unrequited. We see it in characters like Baron Valakovich from Curse of Strahd, who stages elaborate celebrations to try and foster happiness in his subjects, punctuated by the phrase, "All will be well." We see it in the character of Danovich from Expedition to Castle Ravenloft, who turns to a fragment of the liver blaspheme to bring his son back to life. Finally, we see it in the character of the Abbot from Curse of Strahd, who constructs a flesh golem to serve as a bride for Strahd in the vain hope that it will appease the Vampire Lord's wrath. The Persecutor aspect rises up when individuals try to break free from the fantasy world that it has created for them. It is the assassin of hope, convincing individuals that they are not worthy of love and not capable of accomplishing anything in their lives. The Persecutor convinces them to stay in abusive relationships and to remain in terrible situations, using the argument that the unknown is far more terrifying and dangerous. When individuals are effectively isolated from the outside world, the Persecutor can also turn on them, convincing them that the only way to end their suffering is through suicide or death. Strahd engages in these persecutorial behaviors, sending wolves, undead, and other creatures into the night after anyone who attempts to leave his kingdom. Depending on the edition and the adventure you're running, Strahd uses a variety of game mechanics such as taint, fear, horror, despair, and madness to wear down his victims before he kills them. Individuals must first be aware of the Protector-Persecutor's grip on their lives in order to confront and defeat it. They must be aware of its rules, its tactics, and destroy the aspects which make it powerful. Once individuals are aware of the Protector-Persecutor, they must confront it. The best way to do this is to identify its rules and begin to break them. In the case of Strahd, the rules are to despair, to remain meek, to trust no one, and above all else to abandon any hope of ever leaving the mists. As individuals start to break these rules, the wrath of the Protector-Persecutor grows in intensity. Individuals in the grip of a Protector-Persecutor may experience terrible nightmares and increasing negative self-talk as they push at the boundaries of the fantasy realm that it has created for them. In the Ravenloft adventure, as characters break Strahd's rules, maintaining hope, gaining strength, trusting in the help of others, all to break his iron grip on Barovia, the Vampire Lord sends ever more powerful allies after them. As individuals defend themselves against the Protector-Persecutor, the narrative of their nightmares changes. Where at first there was no hope, there are now hints of strategies and tactics that individuals can use to overcome their inner demons. Eventually, they encounter the Protector-Persecutor, not as a monster but as a human being. In the case of Strahd, acquiring the Sun Sword, destroying his heart, and freeing Irina are all tactics that the characters can use in their efforts to defeat him. Armed with the Sun Sword and with Strahd stripped of his powers, the adventurers finally encounter him and are able to defeat him, freeing not only themselves, but all of Strahd's captives within the mists of Barovia. If you are an individual suffering from depression or trauma and you believe that you are struggling with your own Protector-Persecutor, please seek help. The Protector-Persecutor is an insidious foe that is actively working against you from within, and its hope is to destroy. With the help of a therapist, you can overcome many of the issues to which the Protector-Persecutor subjects you. If you are a therapist, I hope that this video has helped you consider how to help your clients who are struggling with their own Protector-Persecutor so that they can eventually heal. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to be notified when I upload new videos, please hit subscribe. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and I'll see you in therapy.